that they wanted a discussion of slashing. The slashing rules are actually posted on Atlassian. Let me see if I can find them very quickly. Here. Okay, here we go. I think it's here. Oh, sorry, I'll have to dig it up. Oh wait, maybe that's it. No, that's not it. Maybe. Validator economics. I think that's it. No, that's not it. All right. Well, I'll have to find it. But essentially, the slashing happens when there's an equivocation, and or if you're building on top of a slash block, then that would also be slashing. And then failure to slash is also slash. So those are your main three places where you do get slashing. Currently, there should be no slashing of co-op nodes against each other. That would only happen if we have nodes in the wild, or if there's a bug. So far, we've eliminated all of the bugs that we've seen where co-op nodes slash each other, but it might show up that there's a condition that we haven't seen yet in our testing. I'll try to be more prepared. I just got the notice from the member that they wanted more discussion of that. I'll try to be more prepared with a link to the discussion of all the slashing, which it's actually up on the RChain wiki. I just can't find the article right this moment. But we can go ahead and have a quick technical update. Let's see. I don't believe that we've cut another release, but we do have a client example from Tomislav, which is completed now. I'm not sure if he's on. He may already be asleep. I had asked him in Discord if he wanted to give a demo, but I think it's a little late for him. We can get a demo from him either Friday or next Wednesday. The biggest discussion in front of us is the jurisdictional discussion. We had a board meeting yesterday, and the board spent most of its time in that jurisdictional discussion. We'll be giving a more in-depth briefing. Steve Hinley has taken the time to collate a lot of information about Estonia, and we'll give a more in-depth discussion on the Friday closed-door session. Daryl spent some time looking at the Cayman Islands as another jurisdictional opportunity. So we want to whittle down the options. There is some sentiment on the board to fight it out rather than to switch jurisdictions. And while that's in the minority, I am listening carefully to all of the input from the board. Steve, do you want to give just like a thumbnail sketch of the discussion around Estonia, and then we'll leave the details for Friday?
Sure, I'll keep it brief. I think one of the things to consider, when we look at a new jurisdiction is, the regulatory framework. So certainly there's certain countries out there that are favorable to blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and others not so much. So that's one aspect. The other is, the ease of working with the country. It's how easy is it to do business there. So that's another sort of a criteria. So I'm kind of looking at some different methodologies out there as far as, how do you kind of whittle this down, when you're taking all these countries around the globe. So and one country that there's a few countries that always kind of rise to the top, and one is Estonia, which I've kind of did since it's been a big part of the discussion. I took a deep dive into it. And so Estonia is, a lot of their government services are digital now, and they have a program called e-residency, so which helps to facilitate this onboarding process. So there's a lot of positives there, but I think we're as a board working towards getting maybe our top 5, sort of discuss and deliberate with those. So we're still kind of working through the options, but I think we're making progress in that direction of looking at the possibility of a new jurisdiction. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
That's a perspective on Estonia. Daryl, do you want to give just a thumbnail sketch of your considerations with respect?
Sure. Yeah. So I looked into Cayman Islands just because I have a couple friends who live there, and so I checked into the Cayman Islands Blockchain Association, and I contacted them, and they're very helpful, and they gave me some contacts to some legal firms there, and there were 6 of them. So I contacted them all, and I heard back from 4. And there's some good information there. It's difficult to start a co-op on Grand Cayman Islands, but they recommended a foundational company as a format, so we need to look into that some more. They also recommended that we contact some legal counsel in Washington State in order to coordinate the possibility of making the move happen. So largely, my investigations ended up with more questions than answers, and that's about where I'm at. Cayman Islands does have definitely, they're working very hard towards becoming friendly for blockchain. They have like a tech city in Georgetown, and so I think that it's a jurisdiction worth investigating. But I love all the dialogue that's been going on in Discord. I think we all need to kind of cast out a net and search as a community. And that's about all I have to say at this moment about that.
Awesome, thank you. And members can expect a considerably more in-depth discussion of at least Estonia and possibly Cayman on Friday. So let me stop there and check and see if there are any questions on anything that we've talked about so far. Going once, going twice. Okay, the other thing the board discussed was the staking opportunity. I was hoping to, we filled our quota on Monday and was hoping to run the transactions on Monday, but I have been really slammed with allergies. Haven't had allergies in years, but there's something in bloom that's just knocking me down. And so between the allergies and the back-to-back meetings all day Monday and half the day Tuesday, it was just impossible for me to do anything more. But Lori and I will be taking taking the staking transactions around 5 p.m. today, Pacific Standard Time. Sorry, 6 p.m. today, Pacific Standard Time. Essentially what we'll be doing is looking for, we have to make sure that this is only conducted with the co-op members, and so far all the people that have contacted me are obviously verified co-op members, and then we want to make sure that the deploy ID of the Rev transaction is communicated when you do the transaction to stake. So as per usual, we published the address to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks. We prefer to have the transactions conducted in person, but we know that people are a little bit busy. Please verify that you are looking at the official staking opportunity document and you're using that address. So when you conduct the transaction, we need the deploy ID. So far, the only wallet that supports this deploy ID is the RChain, but I'm sure that feature will be available to other wallets very soon. Let's see. So what will happen is the stakes will be against the nodes that are already staked, so that we don't have to wait for nodes to catch up. So we won't be issuing bonding requests for new nodes currently. We'll just put the stake against the existing nodes. So hopefully that's clear. Any questions on the staking opportunity?
Just want to confirm I should wait to hear from you before I send the Rev.
That's exactly right. So I mean, for longtime co-op members, it's fine to go ahead and send the Rev. You need to, in your communication to me, you need to send the deploy ID of the Rev that you've sent, along with just to verify and confirm the source Rev address that you're sending the Rev from, and along with which payment method you're planning to use, whether it's payment method number 1, where we take the fees out of your Rev, or payment method number 2, where you pay up front. So that's the communication that you need to DM to me and or LOLL1, which is Lori's Discord ID. Is that clear, Jim?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right, any other questions about the staking opportunity? Okay, a few more things. So we were invited to present the Combinator results at the Places 2020 in Dublin. The paper was rejected, but we were still invited to present, and so we were more than a little disappointed with the reviewers' comments. And so I will, make sure to point out exactly how we were disappointed in the presentation. And to that end, I've done an implementation first of the row combinators evaluation itself, which was to evaluate the Scala Kiyama package as an input format for Ladle. So the point is that Ladle needs a rewrite specification. So both the the theory over which the rewrites are expressed together with the data that constitutes the rewrites themselves. So Ladle needs that as input in order to generate the type system for the notion of computation being typed. So I wanted to look at Kiyama as a contender for that particular data, and it looks relatively decent. I mean, at first blush, it's no worse than K framework. In many ways, it's less verbose than K framework, and it integrates nicely with Scala. So that's something that speaks for it. Of course, you know, I have to do a lot more work to evaluate it. But let's see if I've got anything running right now. Okay, yeah, so I've got it running here. I'll just quickly do a screen share, and people can see what I'm talking about. So we have here, is the font big enough for people to see?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So if you start from scratch, so the project is actually on GitHub now. If you start from scratch with a cloned copy of the project, oops, that won't work. So that'll build the project. I've used a BNFC as the format for inputting data for parsing. So it starts up just a little REPL, and the evaluation of expression. So here's a simple expression. So that does exactly what it's supposed to do. So if you run the kill combinator in parallel with a message, if they're both pointed at the same target, which in this case is at 0, then it should evaluate to 0 because that's what kill does. If we run the dupe combinator, say on at m at 0 with the payload, say, I don't know, or at k at 0 and at branch right at 0. And we run that in parallel with message at message at 0 with a payload of, let's say, k at 0. Oops. I think I expected. Oh, I'll have to take a look. Normally, I've had this work, so I have to see what I did wrong. But anyway, you can play with it. I'll have it cleaned up by the time I go to Dublin, and just essentially demonstrate with a button press that some of the reviewers' comments were incorrect because the code works. So that's something to people can pay attention to. The reason, you know, so how this impacts RChain is we really need the behavioral types for the smart contracts. And we want to essentially test out the behavioral typing system on a complete self-contained mobile, a complete self-contained formalism of that captures all the features of mobile concurrent computation. And so the row combinators is the smallest system that does that. So that's why we're interested in that as a and it just turns out that the row combinators itself answers an age-old question, right, which was, can you give a combinatorial an entirely combinatorial account of mobile concurrent computation? And that's a more than 30-year-old question. So we have given a positive answer to that. And so that's of interest to the community at large. Now, it turns out that you wouldn't want to implement anything in that combinatorial style because there's so much compression available using abstraction. Wonder what I did wrong there. That's really strange. Anyway, any questions about what I just said? Okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts from the community?
I have a question.
Yes.
I was wondering I'm sorry if you mentioned this before. I had to step away from my phone for a moment, so sorry about that if it's a repeat question. But I was wondering if there's any estimate on how long it would take to go to a new jurisdiction.
It depends. Different jurisdictions are going to be different, right? So Estonia is relatively quick. I mean, there's still some steps in the process. You can't do it immediately, but we can get it done in relatively short order once we make a decision about where it is we want to go. Again, depending on the jurisdiction.
But is the aim to start that process now or soon? Like
soon.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing we have to be careful about is that we don't want to just find ourselves in the same position after having done it, right? So.
Well, yeah, that would be horrible.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that where we land, everything is as good as we think it is. We also want to make sure that having done so, the co-op is constituted, or the continuation of the co-op is constituted in such a way that the U.S. authorities who have had problems with, the tokens no longer have an ability to, sway.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay.
All right. So Ian has found the I think the staking details. So that's there in the chat for everyone. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, I would just comment that it's pretty awesome that we have two very nice working wallets, at least, and a nice block explorer, all coming from the membership, from the community.
I agree. It's very encouraging. And I also, you know, I want to continue to tout the DAPI work as well. DAPI is quite impressive as well. So we have a lot going for us. And I think, you know, we should be able to make 2020 into a pretty good year for RChain if we just keep going. All right, thanks to all. I really appreciate your time and attention here, and onward and upward.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.